If I knew how to fix these first three problems from the get-go, oh man, it would have been way nicer and way smoother. Welcome back to Self-Built. Today is all about perfecting your home cable system. A lot of home gyms are going to have cable systems for a couple reasons. One is because they are so extremely versatile and they don't take up a lot of space. And with my gym, I can be in one spot and just leaning and I can hit both walls. So this isn't a very big gym. I don't have a lot of room to let a lot of equipment, of big bars, big equipment be in here. With cables, you can get so much done and a lot of good exercises, but there are some issues that come up with it. One major problem that I see is there's a lot of cable wobble. Another problem I've seen and experienced is there's a lot of drag. It's super uneven. What I mean is when you're pulling down to when the weight's coming back up, it does not feel the same at all. It feels like two completely different weights. And then the other thing is making sure that these cables last a long time, and I'll show you all the remedies of how to do that. First issue I'm going to show you how to fix is to be able to make it so it feels even, there's no drag. So when you're pulling down and the weight's coming up, it's going to feel like the same weight or extremely close to it. The problem that you have is you don't have a good pulley. So let me show you what I've run through. I feel like a janitor, except with keys I got pulleys. These are 4 different kinds of pulleys that I have tried in my years of using a home gym. And I've basically got my hands on just about any pulley I could find or get my hands on that I thought would work well. So, I mean, this is the first one I use, and then it just kind of moves in order of ones that I've tried. Now, I'm not going to waste your time of what things I liked and didn't like about all of them. I'm going to tell you what things you want to look for in a pulley. Now, first thing, you want to look for a pulley that is the biggest. Obviously, you can see which one's bigger. In this case, size does matter. The reason being, we're going to use this cable as an example. So when you've got a small one, I've got a 2-inch one here, I've got a 1.5 inch here. This big one here is 3.5 inches. Now when that cable is wrapped around that pulley, it's either going to be slightly bent or extremely bent. And that's going to add a lot of tension, and it's not going to be able to spread out that weight very well on this pulley. So what you want to do is get a bigger one because it'll alleviate that problem of it spreading that weight out. This pulley's not going to be spinning so much, so it'll feel very fluid and smooth. Another thing to look forward to is you want one that you can have bearings. This one has bearings in here, and if you take this apart, there's some little bearings that you can grease and you can oil up so that they run super smoothly, which is great. And it keeps it super quiet. So I mean, just to show you, so here's a little one. You can hear there's little noise. There's little noise here. This one is the quietest one by far. I've got these ones off of Amazon, and some of the reviews were like, oh, they don't last very long, they break, because these are plastic. They're rated for 400 pounds, and if you have the correct size cable in here, you're not gonna have an issue. I saw people's pictures where they had a super fat one, way bigger than the channel in here, and they're like, it broke. I'm like, well, duh. What do you expect? So make sure you get the appropriate size cable for this. What I have is a 1/8 cable, and this does lead into another problem, which is the swing that we were talking about. When you have a very small pulley, your cable is going to be fighting it. The cable wants to be straight, as you can see. So when it's bent sharply, it's going to be fighting, trying to straighten out. And when you're moving it, it's going to be swinging a little bit. It's not going to be much, but it's going to be a little bit that you may notice. And when you have a bigger one, it's a gradual bend, so it's a lot more agreeable to it. That will help it so it doesn't swing as much, and it will help it last a lot longer. So with the pulley, it solves 3 of the issues right away. You'll notice a difference with all 3 of those category problems that I've told you about, but I'm going to show you some ways to get deeper into those issues to make it so it's perfect. So that's what you want to get, is a bigger one. And I'll also leave a little link in the bio of the ones that I used. They were the cheapest ones I could find. These were roughly about $8 a piece. At the hardware stores, they're about $6 a piece. So it really wasn't that much more. and I've used these for 9 months so far, and they've been great. So nice, so nice. Another thing you want to look forward to in your pulleys is the mounting spot. This part right here where you're going to mount it. You want to be able to set up your pulley so that the channel is facing you. You don't want it to be sideways like this one, because most people, when they're at their pulley, they're pulling the cable towards them, so it just doesn't make sense if it's the other way. The way you can remedy that is you can put a carabiner in here extra to twist it, which is great, but it's going to run into an issue of what we're going to address now, which is how to correctly set up your pulleys so there's not much wiggle. You are looking at my current pulley setup for the top portion. With the top, you want this to be rock solid, or at least as solid as possible. You can see I got a little wiggle, but it's not a big deal. What I've done is I've drilled a hole all the way through, and I've put a bolt through here. So you want it to be able to rotate like this, but you don't want it to have much forward swing or side swing. This is very little compared to what I've had before. And the reason being, so let's just say I'm pulling here, you can see it's not moving, or I'll pull up high, same here, not moving. And then the part that you want to see is down here. Sorry about the crazy camera thing, but we're pulling and it's going and staying in the same spot. Okay. Next, I've got a setup. This is very common. This is a very common setup that I've seen where people have a chain or something wrapped around and then they've got a pulley. It works, don't get me wrong, but it's going to have a heck of a lot of swinging. Reason being is look at all this play that we've got going on here. If you're pulling down directly, it's not bad, but it's still going to wiggle a lot. And then if you pull up higher, I mean, come on. So if you want to see, this is me pulling straight down. You gotta trust me on this, I'm pulling straight down. Look at all this wiggling. This is also because it's got a small pulley. Okay, now I'm gonna pull to the side. Whoa, what's going on over here? So you can see, not having a good time. You don't want to have your weight swinging around like crazy. So if it's possible with your setup, try to mount it to where it is not moving a whole lot so you don't have that problem. Next is if you have a low pulley like this is a different ball game. You can have this wiggle as much as you want because this wiggling doesn't affect the pulley or the cable to this. So that's one nice thing, is these bottom cables are a lot more forgiving, and with it being all wiggly wobbly, you can do a lot of different angles too. So that is good. Back at the top, if you do want to have a bottom pulley hook up to the top pulley without it being a permanent thing, you want this to be able to swivel, at least in my case, because I've got, and here's a little pro tip for you, I like to have a little screw hold the cable all the way down, so that way it's not on the floor, and it takes 2 seconds to go whoop, and then just change it right there. But when you have it hooked up, this does need to be facing, so it has to be able to turn. Otherwise, there's a lot of binding. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Okay, so we've addressed 2 of the problems. We've fixed the swing. We've got the right pulley size, so it's not dragging or anything like that. Last thing we want to do is make sure that these cables last as long as possible. I attribute most of the cable life to the pulley itself because it's not bending that as much, or it's bending it more to where that is what's really wearing it out. It's not so much the weight. The kind that I use is 1/8 cable. It's got the coating on it. It's rated for 400 pounds. So I mean, I don't use anything near that kind of weight because I've got 2 stacks, so I don't have 400 pounds in each arm. You crazy? So it's not the weight that's wearing it out, it's the bending, constant bending. So if you've got a bigger pulley, it's not bending as much. You might wonder what I got in my hand. I've got some cable here. What I used to have happen is my cables would have to get replaced every 3 months, pretty much on the dot, just because they'd be so worn out. And this is what normal cable looks like. This is brand new, haven't used it, it's nice and straight. You might be able to see the color on it. I'll compare it with the other one in just a second. And then here is some used cable. Now I haven't done anything to it, but it turned into a giant slinky. This is what happens when it's getting bent over and over. You can also tell when it's getting bent a lot after like a set. If you fill the cable, it gets warm. So you can definitely know that it's getting stressed from getting bent too much if you've got a small pulley, because yeah. So this is definitely a sign that this thing needs to get replaced. I did one time test to see how long, or if I could just push through and keep going and going. No, it snapped in half on me. So there is that. So keep an eye on your cables before they just snap on you. You don't want anything to happen. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to damage anything. So be careful. A couple signs of wearing on your cables. So you're not going to see this slinky action unless you had it completely taken off of your cables, because mine are starting to show wear. One thing you'll notice is after you're doing a heavier exercise, heavy load, it'll spin. It'll spin a little bit, it'll rotate when the weights are going, and when you let go, it'll start to rotate because it's just, I don't know, it's starting to turn into a slinky. So that's one sign. You can also see that the colors on the cable are a little bit different. They get a little darker. You can make it out a little bit. Now it's not grease and grime from being used like on the outside. This is all internally. So you can see this is darker, this is lighter. That's another sign that you can tell it's starting to get time to wear to change them out. So there's another one. And one of the biggest tips besides getting the correctly sized pulley is, I'm gonna show you a magic trick. Now when you think about it, when you're working out, you're exercising, you're working out along. Let's put my finger halfway in this cable. So as we're going, chances are you're only using half of your cable. Magic trick here is all you do is just rotate ends. Just like this, that up there, that down there. Well, bam! You got magical brand new cable. Hasn't been used, it's ready to go. So there's another great hack for you to get the most out of your cable, because the first time I replaced it, I'm like, why is only half of this dirty? I'm wasting my time and my money. Well, it's like 40 cents a foot, but come on. Still, you want to get the most bang for your buck, right? Anyways, going back to the longevity of the cables, previously, before I got these great pulleys, it was only 3 months that it would last. I'm on my 9th month so far, and they're just barely starting to show the sign that they're twisting a little bit when I let go. So I could probably realistically get, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out of it. But I'm probably gonna change it in a month or two, just because me, myself, I like it to be nice and clean. I like it to be smooth. I don't want them to spin. I just like it to feel good, because it's my gym, so that's my personal preference. If you're curious on quiet versus noisy pulleys, here's my first one that I used. So you can tell there's a little bit of noise. This one was terrible. It had so much drag. It was ridiculous. This was my second one. It was basically a dream compared to this one. And then the third one was basically the same idea, just bigger, not bad at all. And then this one with pulleys and stuff, it's much smoother, much quieter. Putting it right by the mic so you can hear it. But when there's weight on here, you can't really hear these cables. This cable also really excels when you have your top and your lower cable mounted together, because you're getting twice the pulley. So if there's any drag in the first or second pulley, you really notice when you're doing a press or pull, because when you're letting that weight come down, you're like, wait, this feels half the weight as when I was pulling against it or pushing against it. So these excel extremely well when there's multiple pulleys put together. If you're only gonna do the top pulley, this one I didn't really have any complaints about very much. I mean, knowing what I know now, I'd absolutely go for this. But if you don't have this available to you, you can pick this up at your local hardware store. It's a 2.5 inch zinc pulley. And this one, it definitely did the job. It was great compared to these first two. But to save you some time and some money, just go straight for the good ones. 3.5 inch with some ball bearings in here. It won't let you down. Okay, here's 2 tips for you as well. Not every time that you're going to start using your cable that it's going to be completely perfect. Even with all these great tips, there's still a chance for it to wobble a little bit. First thing I do whenever I do a workout is I'll do what I call a setting the weight, which I'll just give a couple light pulls and I'll let the weight move to where it doesn't want to move around. It'll find basically its center. So I'll do that whenever I move the position of this pulley, because when that's changed, this zero position is going to change as well. So I'll just feel that out and then it's good to go whenever. Another thing to be mindful for is if you're using a lot of speed, if you're using a ton of speed, it's going to swing a little bit. I mean, you gotta, come on, there we go. Swinging a little bit, see? So if you keep going, it is going to swing and go a little crazy. So you can't go insanely fast. It does have a limit, but as long as you are moderate with the speed, and once it starts to swing, just let it find its zero space again, or its settling point, and you're good to go again. So that way it's not woo Tarzaning all over the place to where you're like, great, am I gonna break a mirror today or what? So there's some good ones for you. So I hope this video helps you out. If I knew how to fix these first 3 problems from the get-go, oh man, it would have been way nicer and way smoother. But I got there eventually, so that's all that matters. So I hope you guys can use what I've learned to get immediately perfect cable setup for you guys. So give it a like if you like the video right here. Don't forget to subscribe. There'll be a lot more great stuff coming. And let me know how these tips helped you out in the comments below, or if I missed some tips, definitely leave them down. We can share this message and get them out to everybody so we can all be having the best home gyms possible. You can also follow me on the gram and the talk. And don't forget to pick up your sweet self-built merch in the description below. And I'll see you next time on Self Built.